Part 42. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 411. Chapter 411. Huo Linyuan never acknowledged her identity. Ms. Lan, what you said is really strange. I don't know what you think, but I feel strange anyway, one of them said. What do you mean? What do you think is weird? If you think there is anything weird, just say it. After all, we are all here. If you have any doubts, then just say it. You don't know. Tell me, how can we know what you are talking about is weird? As soon as these words came out, everyone around laughed. You must know that the people who can get into the upper echelons of the Huo group are not simple people, especially those who originally had grievances against Lan Min, or even very big grievances. A few simple words made Lan Ji feel a little embarrassed. Finally, the person who just started speaking spoke again. What I'm curious about is, Miss Lan, what is your identity that allows you to say this? What qualifications do you have to say this, and what qualifications do you have to let us go back? Mr. Huo is all of us, the backbone of a person, and you actually went back so lightly, haha. Forget about other words, the key is the last haha. Lanji wanted to refute, but she couldn't. Because Huo Linyuan never publicly acknowledged her identity. Girlfriend. Wife. It seems that Huo Linyuan has never acknowledged her so firmly. Acknowledge who she really is. Even at this moment, a bold idea appeared in Lanji's mind. If she chooses Baikan when Baikan loves her, will the person Li Baikan talks about love her? Li Baikan, don't worry, it won't be you, it definitely won't be you. Lan Min's dazzling look meant fear in the eyes of these people. Miss Lan, I think you should be the one to leave here. After all, you and Linyuan have no so-called status at all now. If you stay here, you have no status and no status. This is really unfair to you. Without any name or status, these four really hurt Lan Min deeply. But Lan Min now clearly knows that Linyuan needs him now, and he must stay by Linyuan's side no matter what the price. Thinking of this, Lan Min subconsciously held his hand and showed a determined expression. Even if I have no name or status, I will stay here because Linyuan needs me. However, Lan Min's attitude was met with a wave of ridicule. I need you, I don't think so. Don't forget, the reason why Linyuan is lying here is entirely because of you. Don't you know how much trouble you have brought to Linyuan for our Huo family? Look at her. If you didn't know better, you might think that this woman has done some great work. Now I really feel that this woman is really hypocritical. She was obviously the cause of the trouble, but now she pretends to be a good person. Haha, I don't even feel that this woman has any shame at all. After all, because of this, how much damage did the woman's behavior cause to the company? Do you think this woman like you is a spy created by Li Baikan? When Lan Zhen saw the contempt and disdain in the eyes of the people around him, he subconsciously covered his ears. I'm not a spy. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 412. Chapter 412. The male protagonist's ridicule. Ms. Lan, you are not in good spirits. You should go back and rest. One of the senior management directly called the security guards and wanted to take this Lan person away by force. At this moment, many doctors suddenly rushed here and even rushed to the emergency room. When the senior officials outside saw this situation, they looked at each other. They all wanted to crane their necks to see what it was like inside the emergency room. In such a situation, they naturally couldn't care less about Lan Min. Not long after, the door to the emergency room was opened. Not only did it open, but Huo Linyuan, who was full of anger, also walked out of it. The moment Huo Linyuan appeared, the people who were so arrogant just now seemed to suddenly turn into a group of mice, lowering their heads cautiously. Linyuan, Lin Yuan, are you okay? Do you know? You really scared me to death this time, Lan Min said, and wanted to pounce on Huo Lin Yuan. The moment she saw Huo Lin Yuan, she felt as if she had a backbone. But now Huo Lin Yuan is not in the mood at all. Immediately contact the media and expose it. I want everyone to know what that woman Sunian did. I want Sunian and Li Baikan to pay the price. When the surrounding senior officials heard this, they were shocked and all of them lowered their heads. He did not lose in this round. There is no loss. His layout is still useful. Immediately began to issue orders. Since Li Baikan was not willing to be the knife in his hand, he let Li Baikan know what the price was. Lin Yuan, you are in such bad health now, you should have a good rest. After Huo Lin Yuan finished giving instructions, he quickly said thoughtfully. But normally Lan Min could comfort Huo Lin Yuan a little bit if he was so considerate, and then get intimate for a while. Now Huo Lin Yuan was stabbed hard by Li Baikan. The key is when he is correct in everything. He immediately grabbed Lan Min's wrist tightly and looked at Lan Min with sharp eyes. Didn't you tell me how much Li Baikan loves you? Didn't you threaten me before? If I treat you badly, don't you? Then you choose Li Baikan. Why is this happening? If such an important part had not been calculated accurately, this would not be the case now. Lan Min was pinched by Huo Lin Yuan's hand until it hurt. But what made her even more uncomfortable was what Huo Lin Yuan said. Because every word Huo Lin Yuan said reminded her that the man didn't have himself in his heart, he really didn't have himself. Lin Yuan, it hurts, I really feel pain. Huo Lin Yuan had no intention of letting her go. Lan Shi, you and that Sunian are both women. Now you should tell me what I should do next and what I should do to win this round. I don't know, Lin Yuan, you are really scary like this. Why are you like this? Huo Lin Yuan now realized that he was a little too impulsive. How could he ask Lan Min this question? He let go of Lan Min, causing Lan Min to fall to the ground. Huo Lin Yuan took a deep breath and calmed down his mood. How can I ask you? What's the use of asking you? You haven't gone to any university and don't know anything. How can you be like Sunian? What happened to me, an opponent carefully cultivated by my family? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 413. Chapter 413, You must not lose this step. As everyone knows, these words are what makes Lan Min most uncomfortable. Lin Yuan actually said that she was not as good as Sunian. Even Lin Yuan said so. At this moment, Lan Min covered her heart. But now Huo Lin Yuan really doesn't have much time to coax his woman, he only has one idea now. Let Li Baikan suffer such severe pain. It is more painful and uncomfortable than him. So Huo Lin Yuan had no intention of staying in the hospital for a long time, but went back to the company directly. He wanted to seize the time. But when he first arrived at the company, he got a piece of news. Sunian had a miscarriage while being taken away by the police. And the news is still spreading rapidly. You must know that so many people watched Sunian being taken away. If such news comes out first, the effect of attacking the police will be greatly reduced. After all, humans are preconceived creatures. The news of Sunian's miscarriage has already gained public sympathy. If the incident of assaulting the police were to be revealed now, the situation would not be reversed. I don't believe that Sunian can be pregnant. Lan Min's voice rang out, it can't be such a coincidence. Sunian must be faking it. Once we find out that Sunian is falsely pregnant, then our situation will change. It can be relieved. These words made Huo Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly light up. Immediately ordered people to check. Indeed, things cannot be such a coincidence. But it takes time to investigate things, especially since Sun Yan is now under the heavy protection of Li Baikan. It was difficult for Li Baikan to bribe the Huo family's family doctor before. Similarly, it is not possible to bribe the Li family's family doctor. However, Huo Linyuan still saw the problem. Sun Yan didn't go to the hospital at all after her miscarriage. For such a big matter, Li Baikan cared so much about Sun Yan, how could he not go to the hospital? This made Huo Linyuan's uneasy mood relax a little. The reason why Huo Linyuan is so uneasy. It was entirely because the secretary was reporting next to me. Now the topic hashtag has reached the top of the hot search list. The topic has been discussed by more than 100,000 people. We are suppressing the trending searches now, but there is no way to suppress it. We really can't suppress it. The more we press for hot searches, the more people on the internet seem to be in a rebellious mood and are fighting back against us. Now Huo Linyuan has only one thought. As long as Sun Yan's false pregnancy and false abortion can be found out, everything can be turned around, and they can be beaten directly into the mud, completely making Sun Yan and Li Baikan unable to stand up. Even Li Baikan will live with his tail between his legs in this life. At this moment, the excited voice of the secretary finally sounded, "I'm convinced, I finally convinced the Li family's family doctor." These words were like a life-saving elixir that suddenly brought Huo Linyuan back to life. However, Huo Linyuan still has some so-called rationality. How did you buy it off? It's like this: I found out that the family doctor had a girlfriend. When I found out where the family's girlfriend was, I immediately took action. I didn't expect that I actually succeeded. This method really cannot convince Huo Linyuan. But Huo Linyuan could feel that the fire might burn him soon. If you really get burned, then you will really lose this round. And it's the kind where everything is lost. He cannot lose to this point, absolutely not. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 414. Chapter 414, Is this game Sun Yan fun? But the doctor has a condition. Huo Linyuan, what conditions? He said that he now knows what the situation is. If he really betrays Li Baikan, his final result will not be any better, so he needs to talk to you directly to ensure that it is your intention and to ensure that for his safety. These words made Huo Linyuan feel slightly relaxed. The more cautious it is, the more it means it is true. Huo Linyuan naturally agreed. But Lan Min said at this time, isn't this a little too unsatisfactory? After all, the family doctor in Baikan was carefully selected by him. How could he be bribed so easily? Linyuan, you still have to think about it for a while. But after Lan Min said this, the whole office became quiet. Huo Linyuan stared at her silently. Baikan, you are quite close to Li Baikan now. Only then did Lan Min realize that she seemed to have said the wrong thing. After all, the senior executives of the Huo group were still doubting whether she was a traitor. In order to prevent Huo Linyuan from misunderstanding, she quickly explained, Linyuan, I'm just used to it, I'm used to calling him this, that's why I do this, please don't misunderstand me. Although Huo Linyuan was not in a good mood, Huo Linyuan still had some so-called sense and knew that now was not the time to get entangled. Instead, I spoke to the Li family's family doctor. He believes he can judge whether this family doctor is genuine or not. The call was answered soon. Are you really Li Baikan's family doctor? Huo Linyuan said bluntly. On the other end of the phone, if Mr. Huo doesn't believe it, then I don't have to make the money. After all, it's not worth taking such a big risk. Then don't make any money. After saying that, Huo Linyuan hung up the phone. He looked at the phone, waiting for the call from the other side. Huo Linyuan knew that he had to calm down. But the irritability in his heart was really increasing. He now clearly knows that all his bets are on this guy, on this hope that is absolutely impossible. In business, this kind of gambler's behavior is not advisable. But he really had no choice. He looked at the time many times. But there was no sign of the call coming, really no sign at all. At this time, the secretary's voice sounded again, "Mr. Huo is not in good condition. The current direction of public opinion is towards the police issue." These words really made Huo Linyuan feel like he was waking up from a dream. "Oops, I fell into a trap. Now go to the marketing company, go to the Navy company, and get as much as you can." Perhaps it was because Huo Linyuan was so excited when he said this, that Huo Linyuan's wound began to ooze blood. "Linyuan, why is your wound bleeding? Don't worry about it. You are like this now." "Shut up," Huo Linyuan shouted directly. At this moment the phone rang. Huo Linyuan quickly pressed the answer button. But this time it was a woman's voice that rang on the phone. It was obviously like a silver bell, but it made Huo Linyuan feel like it was a curse. Just listen to the person on the other side of the phone say, "Mr. Huo, I have figured it out. I am willing to take the risk. After all, the timid will starve to death and the bold will die." Huo Linyuan's fingertips holding the phone began to turn white. "Sunian, is this game fun?" End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 415. Chapter 415. Huo Linyuan, you lost this game. "Oh, why did my voice changer fall off? I really deserve to die," Sunian said in a pitiful voice on the other side of the phone. Such a voice was simply insulting to Huo Linyuan. "Sunian, Huo Linyuan, you have lost this game. Stop struggling. If you lose, you lose. If you negotiate the terms happily, I can spare some points. If you are not happy, then don't blame me for being a cruel woman. He. Don't throw the phone. The last time you dropped the phone, it shook my ears. Don't be dissatisfied. You know very well how you got Lanmin out of prison and what methods you used. This time, you also used it? At this point, I can definitely expose your collusion between government and businessmen and put the life of my child on you. Indeed, you can blame the matter on Officer Yang, but what kind of connections did you use? There are no clues. But why did the Mercedes-Benz police car and the police disappear while walking, and at the same time they were still blocking the road section? Let's bet on whether you can control the situation. Collusion between officials and businessmen. Huo Linyuan thought of this, so he asked his secretary to buy marketing or something immediately. This crime is indeed a bit too big, and there are many things involved. Even he does not dare to take risks. The blood from Huo Linyuan's wound really overflowed more and more. The whole person's face was as pale as paper. "What would you like?" "I want your clothing subsidiary. After all, my current clothes are popular and I need to continue to develop them. Your company just happens to have them ready-made, so I can wholeheartedly build my own clothing brand." "Mr. Huo, you are always so generous. I believe you will agree. The matter has come to this, how could Huo Linyuan disagree? Even said, does he still have a chance to choose?" Huo Linyuan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. This time, Lanmin was frightened. Linyuan. Sunian on the other end of the phone felt really happy when he heard these voices. Seeing Sunian's face look good, Li Baikan was in a good mood too. But his smile soon froze. "Although I know that the hero and heroine will probably come back with revenge soon, it's really quite refreshing now. No wonder so many people like to read Shuangguan novels, they are so refreshing. He will not let those two come back with revenge. Won't give it any chance." But while here, Sunian's expression changed. And he got up directly and left in a hurry. Such movement naturally brought Li Baikan back to his senses, and he immediately stood up. "Susu, what's wrong?" But Sunian had no intention of paying attention, which made Li Baikan's brows furrowed even more fiercely. Death, 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 my aunt is here. Auntie. Li Baikan stopped. Didn't I just talk nonsense about miscarriage? As for that? As for coming to me like this? No, no, I have to get pregnant with Mo Bao quickly. After all, after I became pregnant with Mo Bao, I could stay away from my aunt for at least 10 months, and I would be happy for at least 10 months. Li Baikan. He sighed helplessly in his heart. Sometimes I have to admit that Sunian's temperament is a bit too optimistic. She thought that if he had not known through dreams how much she had suffered in her previous life, then he might have believed it. Li Baikan took out his mobile phone and looked at his calendar. She raised her eyebrows slightly when she saw the date marked last month. The difference is not much. It seems that the traditional Chinese medicine given by the old Chinese doctor is effective, and her body is slowly getting better. I believe that if he takes care of himself for a while, Sunian's body will be completely healed. Li Baikan took out his mobile phone and made a call. Josu, please find a time to make an appointment with the old Chinese doctor from before. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 416. Chapter 416 Sun Ying-er's Pity. Since Sunian released the news of the miscarriage, he had to do everything in his drama. So just stay at home and take care of your health. Just when Sunian was sitting on the sofa chewing an apple, a sound suddenly made her almost choke to death. You've had a miscarriage and you still eat apples. You don't want your body anymore. The next moment, the apple in her hand was snatched away. Looking up, she saw Sun Ying-er's expression that was half smiling but not smiling. What a miscarriage, I told you a long time ago, I was just pretending. When Sunian finished saying this, Sun Ying-er hit her the head. You are usually so smart, why don't you know how to act properly? What if someone from the Huo family takes a picture of you? What to do? Sunian stretched out, if you take the picture, take it. This will make him angry. Knowing that I am such a shameless woman, I will definitely be angry, but what's the use of being angry again? He has no evidence to prove me it's just a pretense, unless he can come here, take me to the hospital, and give me a gynecological examination. As Sunian spoke, the male protagonist's violent rage emerged in his mind. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. What you said makes sense, right? Did you know that Lan Min was embarrassed by the top management of the Huo group? Sun Ying-er sat next to Sunian with a gossipy look on her face. This actually attracted Sunian's curiosity. Sun Ying-er then mentioned that Lan Min was surrounded by senior officials in the hospital. When Sun Ying-er learned the news, she felt indescribably happy. She was really happy. She came here to tell Sunian that she wanted her to be happy, but after she finished speaking, she found that she didn't see any happy expression on Sunian's face. Instead, his face looked solemn. This solemn expression made Sun Ying-er a little uneasy. What's wrong, Nian Nian? Sunian came back to her senses and smiled. It's nothing, I just feel that she is pitiful, a woman facing such a situation. Sunian actually thought about what happened in his previous life. In her last life, she was surrounded by the directors of the Li family. Even with the support of the old man, none of those people were simple. They would always use various means, and she was simply overwhelmed. It's really a bit funny. I didn't expect that Lan Min would have this turn in his life. But a pitiful person must be hateful. She interfered in the company's affairs at will. No matter she was a chess piece in Huo Linyuan's hands or something else, she enjoyed the benefits and tasted the sweetness, so these things are what she should do. Sunian agreed with this. Okay, let's not talk about her anymore. How is the sales of my clothes going? These words immediately made Sun Ying energetic. Nian, do you know? Our clothes are really sold out now. I went to the factory and ordered a 5 million order. As soon as it was done, I went to the link. I bought it in a few days. The clothes are 9.9 and can keep up with the trend. It's worth buying it and using it as a mop. Sun Ying felt a little pity. If I had known it would be so crazy, I would have set the price a little higher. If it had been set a little higher, then we might be able to take advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune. After Sun Ying said this, Sunian stood up and held her shoulders with his hands. Isn't Huo Linyuan worth only 9.9? Sister, please don't drive up the price of pigs. Sun Ying's eyes suddenly lit up. That makes sense. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 417. Chapter 417 seems to have changed Sun Ying's fate. Yes, it's only 9.9. This dress is only worth 9.9. Sister, think about it. Although Huo Linyuan is a high-ranking man, a business overlord and a high-quality man, we have put in 5 million pieces of clothes, and the streets and alleys are full of these clothes. For example, when he was riding in the car, he looked aside gently, or if he does anything, he will feel uncomfortable if he sees our clothes. Sun Ying thought of that scene. I feel happy. In recent years, although the Sun family is of the same size as the Huo family, there are still times when the Huo family has to look at their faces, especially Huo Linyuan, who clearly agreed to the marriage, but in the end he used Lan Min's incident to insult her. It was like she was leaning against Huo Linyuan. Although she likes Huo Linyuan, she also has her own bottom line. However, the Huo family has absolute control over the cooperation between the Huo and Sun families, and she has no chance to express her thoughts. Sun Ying took the coffee cup from the servant's hand. Nian, do you know? Huo Linyuan came to me before. What he told me was that he could give me a marriage and I could be the only Mrs. Huo. Except love, he can give me anything, haha, no matter what. The reason why I was entangled with him in the first place was because of my anger. Then can he give you his life? Sunian sneered directly. If you agree, it will look good. You will have everything except love. When he has a child with that woman, then you become a sinner who obstructs them, because the child is innocent, and because of you, you cannot give the innocent child a home. According to the normal plot, when the male and female protagonist's child is born and grows up, he will eliminate Sun Ying, the character who prevents the male and female protagonist from being together. They even use this to prove that the hero and heroine are in true love. MD, the more I think about it, the more I feel that the male and female protagonists of this Mary Sue are bitches. Sun Ying. You must know that Sun Ying has never thought about this before. Now she is really vomiting to death. Let me give you an example. If you and he get married and each does his or her own thing, he will definitely say that you have ruined the family's reputation, and the benefits have really been taken away by this couple. Sun Ying was angry. I laughed at the end. It's really a good plan. In fact, when Sun Ying cooperated with Sunian, she also thought about using this to make Huo Linyuan look back. After all, Sun Ying was really unwilling. After all, almost everyone in these years said that she and Huo Linyuan were a perfect match. If she was so obedient, Huo Linyuan, if you can't let Huo Linyuan see it, then use another method. But now she really feels too stupid. Sunian suddenly realized something after finishing speaking. What she just said seemed to be Sun Ying's original life. My life has been set by this plot, and the things I have been tossing with Sun Ying recently, haven't they changed Sun Ying's fate? Although I had this idea when I contacted Sun Ying. But when she really found out that she had done it, she still felt a little strange in her heart. At this moment, Sunian thought of Li Baikan. If it can be changed, then does it really change? When she thought of this, Sunian's heart tightened slightly. Nian, I suddenly felt that my previous life was a bit ridiculous. After all, before you told me, I had no idea of entertaining you. The more Sun Ying'er said this, the brighter the smile on her face became. Haha, why didn't I think of this? I couldn't even think of such a simple thing. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 418. Chapter 418, I can't lie down any longer. Sunian's heart suddenly tightened when she saw Sun Ying'er like this. She subconsciously wanted to say something. But Sun Ying'er stood up directly. Nian, your health is not good now. All you have to do is have a good rest. Then I won't disturb your rest and will leave first. After saying this, Sun Ying'er just left in a hurry. Don't even give Sunian a chance to speak. Sunian watched her leave silently, sitting alone on the sofa for a long time. She didn't come back to her senses until the servant reminded her. Sunian took a deep breath, then stood up slowly, planning to return to the bedroom. Follow Sunian step by step. Her previous life appeared in her mind. In her last life, she woke up and came to this strange world, and then became Li Baikan's wife. After that night, she took over the entire Li group. You must know that before she traveled to this world, she was just a very ordinary person. It's the kind that can't be found if you just throw it into a crowd. Taking responsibility for a company and a destiny that was not originally yours. In the end, when she got old, she realized that she really had nothing to cherish in her life. Sunian lay on the bed and recalled in a daze. Perhaps it was because her life in her previous life was too useless and there was nothing happy about her, so the genius would give her a chance to be reborn. In a daze, Sunian seemed to feel the place beside him sinking. Then she felt a very cold hand on her forehead. What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Li Baikan's gentle voice sounded. But now Sunian has no intention to speak at all. Li Baikan had already finished his work and planned to go out to accompany Sunian, but when he came out, he heard the laughter of Sun Ying'er and Sunian. Although Li Baikan didn't really want to admit it. But for Sunian, staying with Sun Ying'er was more enjoyable than staying with herself. Li Baikan also realized that his hands were a little too cold, so he thought he could warm them under the quilt for a while, and then rub Sunian's belly after they were warmed up. Let Sunian feel comfortable for a while. If I have awakened Sun Ying'er's words and changed her destiny, thinking about it, Li Baikan is really a little different from the Li Baikan of the previous life. These words made Li Baikan feel happy. She finally discovered something was different about him. Li Baikan, who originally had some objections to the contact between Sunian and Sun Ying'er, suddenly lost his objections. Now it seems that Sunian may not be able to deeply feel his change alone, but if there are many people who have changed, then Sunian will definitely be able to feel that everything is changing, especially him. But what should I do with the Mo? If Li Baikan does not die and his relationship breaks down in the future, then the Mo will definitely not be given to me. No, now Li Baikan's attitude towards me is also noticed by the old man. If that day comes, then if I go to ask the old man for help, then the old man will definitely be on my side. Then Mo must be mine. Li Baikan. Why did it involve that brat Mo again? And since Li Baikan is alive, Mo will not lack his father's love in this life, so he will be happier. Hey, I just think of this now, there is something wrong with my brain. Why do I want to lie down and wait for Mo to be born and let Mo defeat the male and female protagonists? Why don't I do it myself, or change everyone's behavior, destiny? Yes, I must find a way to keep Li Baikan alive. Of course, to be on the safe side, I still have to get the seeds first. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 419. Chapter 419. The domineering Sun Ying-er. Lee Baiken really doesn't know what to say now. Should we be happy that this little woman is willing to find a way to save his little life, or is she taking advantage of Mo Bao? When his hands were warm, he put his hands on Sunian's abdomen. Kneading gently. Sunian became more and more sleepy. Lee Baiken kissed her on the cheek. Time slips away in these quiet moments. Sun Ying-er came out of the Lee family and was blocked by Huo Linyuan. Then she followed Huo Linyuan to a coffee shop. Miss Sun, as far as I know, our engagement has not been cancelled. I can fulfill the engagement between you and me at any time. Perform the engagement? You must know that when she proposed the engagement in front of Huo Linyuan, he was always very impatient. She really didn't expect that one day, this man would take the initiative to propose the engagement in front of her. How to perform? If you marry me, I can give you the position of Mrs. Huo, and you will enjoy all the treatment of my wife. However, after the marriage, neither of us will interfere in the affairs. I can give you everything that Mrs. Huo deserves, except love. Sun Ying-er. She really didn't expect that not long after Nian finished speaking, it would happen again. And it's almost exactly the same words. However, Sun Ying-er has not been Huo Linyuan's fiancé for so many years in vain. She naturally knows the temperament of the man in front of her. He is anxious to lose. Want to make a comeback, want to use oneself to make a comeback. And his condescending attitude made Sun Ying-er feel that this man was hypocritical for the first time in so many years. It was as if he was giving alms, and he was very sure that he would accept his charity. Can you get a sterilization? This made Huo Linyuan suddenly stunned. I can have no love, but if I marry you and you are with Lan Zhen, no matter she is a lover or something else, if you give birth to a child, then you will become your heir. What can I, Mrs. Huo, get? Something. It will pave the way for you and Lan Min in 100 years, Huo Linyuan, right? At this moment, cracks appeared in Huo Linyuan's expressionless face. I know that sterilization is difficult for a man, so I am giving you a choice. The children I give birth to in the future, no matter who they are with, will be your only heirs and the future legitimate heirs of the Huo family. Huo Linyuan immediately picked up the cup on the table and threw it to the ground. Sun Ying-er, I forgive you for your betrayal of me. This is already a step back for me. You and that Sunian are just to attract my attention. Your goal has been achieved now. What else do you want to do? Don't push yourself too far. Why don't you marry Lan Min? You and Lan Min are so in love, why don't you marry her? Sun Ying-er suddenly changed the subject. The reason for this was because she saw Lan Min sitting next to her. He looked like he was about to cry. Huo Linyuan, she is not suitable. Yes, it's very inappropriate. How can a woman who doesn't know anything, doesn't know how to communicate in the upper class, doesn't know about various business dealings, and is in poor health, how can she be your wife? When Sun Ying-er said this, his tone became louder. Yes, she can have love. This is a priceless thing, and I am not qualified to have it. At this point, Sun Ying-er stood up directly. Then I did what I should do in the current environment. Picked up the glass of water and poured it over hard. I admit that my purpose before was to attract your attention, but now I have changed. I want to work with Sunian to pull you down so that you can become my male favorite. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 420. Chapter 420 Lu Jing's Anxiety. Sun Ying'er felt relieved as soon as she vented her anger like this. After all, it's hard to find a three-legged toad, but it's also hard to find a two-legged man? Sun Ying'er immediately turned around gracefully. Sun Ying'er, you will regret it? These words successfully made Sun Ying'er stop in her tracks. Regret? What do I regret? If I choose you, then I will get nothing, but if I resist, then there is still a glimmer of hope. If I win, if so, then I can get you, Huo Linyuan, we'll see. After saying this, Sun Ying'er strode forward. I don't know if it was an illusion or something else, but Sun Ying'er really felt much more relaxed. The kind of relaxation is really indescribable. It was like a burden that had been carried for many years was lifted. Sometimes, it's really good to let go. Sun Ying'er couldn't help but close her eyes and breathe the fresh and free air. But before she could take a breath of air, a voice rang in her ears, Sun Ying, how can you give up just because you say you want to give up? After all, that person is the person you have loved for many years. How can you give up? If I gave up, so what should I do? These words successfully made Sun Ying'er frown. Did the family know about this conversation so quickly? Did you catch up here? Just come to persuade? But she has made her decision this time. But when Sun Ying'er opened her eyes, she was stunned. Because the person standing in front of her was not from the Sun family, but Lu Jing. Sun Ying'er, why are you so stupid? You finally waited until Huo Linyuan was willing to marry you. Why did you refuse? And if you refuse this opportunity, then you may never have a future with Huo Linyuan in this life. Do you really want this to happen? The reason why Lu Jing is here is because Lan Ren came to him crying yesterday. Crying that Huo Linyuan wanted to marry another woman. At that time, Lu Jing almost laughed out loud when he heard this. Huo Linyuan is going to marry another woman, so his opportunity will come. As long as he can seize this opportunity, he can take advantage of Lan Min's sadness and win the beauty back. So he followed her secretly, just to wait for Lan Shi to see Huo Linyuan discussing marriage with another woman, and then show up in time to give her a big shoulder. Who knew that Sun Ying'er would not agree? If he doesn't agree, what will he do? There are so many people in the upper class circles. Why doesn't Sun Ying'er know about Lu Jing's liking for Lan Min? Young Master Lu, what do you mean? I don't mean anything. I just think that you have loved someone for so many years and finally achieved success. It's a pity that you give up now. Miss Sun, you really need to think about it carefully and don't let your life be like this, such a regret. Sun Ying'er really doesn't know how to describe her mood now. She thought about how many people would come to criticize and persuade her if she rejected Huo Linyuan, but she really didn't expect that the first one to come would be Lu Jing, who had nothing to do with her. If I remember correctly, Mr. Lu, your industry is actually the entertainment industry. Lu Jing was trying to persuade her, but he didn't expect that she would suddenly say this. He was stunned, and then subconsciously said, what do you mean by this? There is a saying that is good when you are close to vermilion, and when you are close to ink, you are black. No wonder you are like this, Mr. Lu. It is probably because of this reason. Lu Jing was not a fool. He reacted immediately, what do you mean? You actually said that I look like a woman. Sun Ying'er didn't get too entangled with him, but waved and took a taxi and left. End of this chapter.